basically around the USA.
I get it. Okay. There you go.
Thank you.
That's good.
I try never to narrate what I'm doing. I try and see what I'm doing entirely in pictorial terms, knowing that what I'm doing is kind of suppressing the urge to narrate. I've said it many times, the viewers write the poem that the artist erases in the process of making the picture. So, of course, people are going to re-narrate non-narrative things. That's kind of the magic of the whole thing. My work is to not write. It's a literary activity, not writing. I was painting and drawing as a young person from a very young age. I guess I thought I would do that. But in the 60s, I began to experiment and get restless, like a lot of people. I was still pretty young then, and photography had a charge in it in a way, had a potential, a novelty. I use the word cinematography for my photography, and the reason I use it is because it shares certain characteristics with the way photography is done for films. Essentially, that just means there's some preparation done before the photograph's taken, but also there's some collaboration with other people, whether it's performers or other people who make things for you, kind of stagecraft, I guess you call it. I like the idea of inventing my own themes, but once in a while, I take the opportunities that pop up in front of me. I had seen the woodcut that Hokusai had made in 1830-something of the same subject, and it struck me as somehow intensely photographic, obviously because the papers were captured in a way, in a sort of instantaneity. And it just sort of released the idea that there could be a photographic expression somehow, or this subject could be rendered again photographically. I don't really want to take sides. I don't think that's very interesting. In that picture, you have this bad guy and this good guy, but I don't really want that identity to be too terribly fixed. It's the only thing that I would imagine would come out of it is that their view about a racial incident gets suspended such that they can't explain it to themselves right off the bat. I'm trying to find a way to have the kind of identification, those kind of identifications suspended a little bit, or at least hover so that you don't immediately jump to them. So you might start wondering about this so-called bad guy, or just seeing him more objectively. You know, we live in the polis, we live in a political society. All our relationships are political in some ways. There's no way to avoid it. That's inherent it's probably inherent in any pictorial rendering in any medium, that, you know, a relation between one figure and the other is somehow mediated. It's political in that sense, but it's not political in the sense that I'm trying to make any points. So I wasn't trying to necessarily say anything about the Afghanistan war. I thought, oh, we could have a dialogue of the dead, but really it's more interesting if they were soldiers, because they would have been killed in a cause not their own, or at least not personal. And that kind of lifted the dimension of the whole dialogue into something else. It raised it and made it more broad. And I thought that could be fascinating, to make a gigantic war hallucination. I think all art is always an expression of the affection for there being a world, that there's something to see, that there is even anything exists. It's already a kind of joyful relation to what is, and then everything else kind of, becomes a detail. I think all artists are pretty sympathetic people. They're sympathetic to being, and I think that's why people like art.